Hey Ross, good to meet you.
Hey,
First time.
yeah, likewise. Very nice to meet you.
Thanks for coming on. Where are you located? In
I'm in,
England somewhere, right?
yeah, that's right, in Nottingham, in the middle of England, just
Nice,
halfway up the
Nottingham.
country.
Nice. Okay, cool. I just know from Robin Hood, right? Nottingham Forest and stuff like that. Is this the area where he
Oh,
did his
oh,
deeds? Robin Hood.
oh, sorry, I lost you for a second there, but I heard Robin
That
Hood at the end, and
yes.
yeah, it is indeed the home of Robin Hood.
Awesome, awesome, man. Um, yeah. I mean, I came. I, s- you know, I didn't know if I wrote this in the email, but when I was a couple years before Cyberpunk was actually done, they looked for composers, right? And I,
Yeah.
I did my bid on it, but didn't get selected. But I think they changed it in the middle of it, and he did it himself, right, Marcin?
That's
Is that
right.
true?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of composers in it doing different aspects of it, but yeah, Martin
Hmm.
did a lot of it himself. Did a great job as
Yeah.
well. Great music.
Yeah, I have never listened to it actually. I just listened to your music, and I
Oh,
liked.
thanks.
I do commercials, a lot of commercials myself, and yeah,
Yeah,
you did really well for the
thank you.
for look into like 50 years in the future. Yeah, it's amazing. Nine Inch Nails in definitely influenced. Really nice.
Yes, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, it was a real challenge, that project. But every
Hmm.
challenge, I mean, every project has its own challenges, but that one, there was like 150 adverts, and each one had to sound like it was done by somebody
Wow.
else.
Wow.
So
You did all of
everyone,
them?
yeah, yeah.
Wow, amazing. That's awesome, man. I didn't know there was so many. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. Awesome. So, how did you start your career as a composer? Did you start out as a composer or a musician, or did you do something else entirely before that? Or
Um, it was kind of a excuse me, a long, slow journey, really.
hmm.
I started just as a musician in the late '90s, just with a band,
Hmm.
like a industrial electro kind of band.
Hmm.
Uh, Obviously, like everyone in a band, I wanted to take over the world and be the biggest person ever. And we did okay, but very small underground band. But we played around the world and stuff. It was great, but it never made any money, of course, as
Hmm.
bands tend to not make a lot of money. Um, but I was also playing a lot of video games at the time. Well, I
Hmm.
always have done. Since I was a kid, I loved playing video games, and I
Hmm.
became friends with a guy who was writing music for video games, and he was a fan of my band. Actually, is how I met him,
Oh,
and it turned out I
awesome.
was a fan of his music in the games that he'd worked. That was
Hmm.
Graham Norgate, who's still like my best friend now,
That's
and
awesome, man.
he did the music for the games GoldenEye and Time Splitters,
Hmm.
and it was from that Time Splitters music that I really knew him, and that was my first connection. I wrote one remix for the game Time Splitters 2, and that
Hmm.
was very popular. So he got me to do some more for the next game, and then eventually they expanded the audio team, the game studio that was making those games, and there was room to hire me full time
Oh, wow.
as a composer and sound designer. So that was my I say it was my break, but I had many years of writing music, and I was very happy, but I didn't really have any big successes or lucky moments for those first 10 years. So
I know.
I don't feel
Oh,
too bad that I eventually got my break.
no, I think you deserve it for sure. I mean, every one of us deserves it at some point, but it takes some
Exactly.
time, right? It's not
Yeah,
like, I mean, every one hit wonder has like 10 years of building and building, right? So it's like, it takes
exactly.
time. Hmm.
Yeah, I think it takes some patience, and maybe there's some luck here and there, but also I think just hard work and
Hmm.
keeping going is the most important thing for composers. Just faith in yourself and just don't stop.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest struggle probably all of us have is, or at one point in our career had, how do we make it until we get there, right?
Yeah,
what's the secret behind like making money and like keep going and not getting completely sidelined by another project or a job to
yeah.
actually keep your music career going? But yeah, your success seems like really It's a very, very cool, positive uh, idea. How you did it. I think I really like it. And so when you think about your when you look back a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
what's the one thing that you feel like was the biggest contributor of your success so far, in terms of music composition and making it in this industry?
I think something quite important is making the the compromise and the decision to take it a little further than feels natural. Like I think to really, it's a difficult one. So I think if you really want to go pretty far with it, then there needs to be compromises in your life, and I think you need to you need to, you know, turn down that nice night out with your friends and all that kind of stuff, and just put in extra hours. And I think it's like anything. Like I've talked to someone recently about this, and I compared it to, let's say, weightlifting and getting muscles. Like you could do a little bit, and that's cool, and you'll get some little results. But if you want to be like I'm sure if you want to be like a world champion weightlifter, you have to give up a lot of things, and you have to dedicate certain parts of your life to it. And I think it's the same with composing. Like if you really, really want to really go for it, I think you need to be working very hard, spending pretty much every evening writing or learning or doing what you can to and I think it's the same with any creative thing, really. Like if you really want to go crazy and dedicate your life to it, there has to be some compromise, because you only have a certain amount of time. Like modern life is very busy.
That's the only thing that's none of us has more time than they have, right?
Exactly.
It's just
Yeah.
24 hours a day, and that's it. Yeah. And were there particular things that you had to give up for yourself, or was this always like you only wanted to do this and just did this all the time, or did you what was your compromise?
Well, I think it was just realizing, like sometimes if you're working on a song, you think you're struggling with it, and you think, oh, I don't know what the problem is here. Sometimes the problem is you just haven't put enough time into it. Like not all songs can be saved with putting time into them, but I think overall, like if you're putting 3 hours work into something, or if you're putting then 12 hours work into it, it's a very different product at the end. So I think what I realized what I needed to do is just make serious time for music, which is what I've done in my life. It's a real almost obsessive pursuit of music now. I think about music from when I wake up until when I go to sleep, and I watch videos and I look at new equipment that I told myself I definitely need. I mean, you've seen all this crazy stuff of me. I can't stop. But no, I think it's just a case of realizing how much work and love you have to put into it to get those bigger results. And it doesn't have to be that as well. I think it's a sliding scale, just because if somebody wants to have some success with music, they can put some time into it. It's just I think you need to mentally prepare for how much hard work you need to put in if you really want to have big successes.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there a particular like moment in time that you can recall where you realized that you are a composer, or wanted to be a composer rather than a musician? Touring, is that certain
it actually was. It was a very conscious decision in the end. It was about, so I guess like 2015, 2016, something like that. I was still doing my band, and I still to right now I do a little bit of things for my band, but that's just for fun with my bandmate. I was sound designing, and I was doing a little bit of composing for games, but really just as a nice thing, as an addition. And then also a few other creative things, like doing some drawing cartoons and things like that. And I thought, okay, it's probably time. I don't have time to do all these things. It's like, what do I really want for my life from now on? And I thought, I think it's time to commit. I want to be a composer, mostly for video games. And these other things, they have to be pushed to the side a little bit to make room. And from that time on, I've focused much more heavily on self-promotion and trying to find the work and improving my skills and my weak areas and stuff. And I think that's been helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you think about this, for someone who wants to break into game music, who wants to be like composing music for games, what would you tell someone what they should do in the next 30 days to actually get in there?
Oh, that's a great question. I think there's some good, sensible things you can do first. I think you need to understand game music, because the structure and what you need to deliver for game music is very different from just linear, normal music. Because most games these days have a dynamic music systems where it changes depending on the gameplay and how you're playing the game. And for that kind of music, you have to, there's lots and lots of small sections and stems and transitions. So I think probably two good things you could do if you wanted to get into game music. First of all is just watch some gameplay, or play, even better, I guess. Play some of your favorite games and try to consciously listen to what's happening in the music and what is causing the music to change, and like how does it flow from one section to another. Like any popular modern game that people play, like Last of Us, anything like that, that it all has this dynamic music, and you'll be able to, if you listen as a musician, you'll be able to hear as it's transitioning through different states and intensities and things. So just even if you don't get it right, it's a very good exercise, I think, to try and start thinking about how that music might have been built up. Also, video game composers have a very good history of being very open and sharing what they do. And there's lots and lots of talks and tutorials on YouTube from people presenting how they've built their music. So I'd say, play the game and just do some digging on YouTube. You'll find video game composers talking. Also on social media, another thing, there's a very big, very open community of video game composers on Twitter and Facebook and everywhere else. So just find them and ask questions. They're nice people. It's a very friendly community, and we love to talk about what we do. So.
That's awesome. Your DMs will be flooded from now on, I think, if you put this out this openly. But so it's what you talked about was more like a technical aspect of how the music is used in the game, rather than, because you have to have an ability or skill to compose music and make the emotions that need to appear on the screen and translate it into music. But the technical aspect, so I'm not a game composer. I tried and I don't play games. So for me, this is really interesting. What's if you would compare like a short film and a game, or like a movie and a game, how is it technically different to compose for both of these? Do you have to do this from as you set out to compose something? Is it different from that point on, or is it more like in the post-production process?
It always surprises me how extremely different video games and like film/TV are. There's incredibly big difference in the flow of it. For video games, there's not really a post stage. It needs to happen as the game is being developed the whole time, which is good and bad. Like good, you can grow with the development of the game, and that's really cool. Bad is things change. Sometimes a lot of music will suddenly have to be just scrapped and not used anymore because some area of the game has been dropped or something. So it's you're writing the whole time during game development. Like the Texas Chain Saw Massacre that I'm working on now, I've been writing music for it since, for 2.5 years now, like just constantly adding and And I'm in a very nice position though, because I'm doing I'm the audio director on the project, and I'm also writing the music.
That's
So
good.
if I have some time in an evening, I just think, hey, I could maybe make a bit of extra scary sound and for this bit, and then I just write an extra layer and put it in myself. But yeah, it's less a case of getting to like a post production stage and then having everything locked down. It's kind of a moving target, which can be difficult at times. But it does mean that you can try it out all the time, because it's very quick to put the music into the game and to live with it and see how it feels. And then you think, no, that's not working. So there's a lot of changing and growing with the development of the game, which is nice. It's
Yeah.
not so much the case if you're like a freelancer, though. If you're a freelance providing music, then you don't have that very direct connection with the game. So I think that's probably a little bit more like film and TV composing, where
Yeah.
there's more of a brief, and you're just you have to write to the brief, and maybe you do some iteration with the audio director, but you don't get to live and breathe the game every day, which can be very nice.
Yeah, and do you also have like a lot of touch points with the software that runs the music, the audio engine behind the game? As an audio director, I suppose, but as a composer, is this essential to know your way around this software as well?
It's very good to have you don't need to, like, if you're just purely a creative composer and you haven't had any particular background with like the video game software used for implementing the audio, you don't need to have a deep understanding of it, but any understanding you have is very beneficial. And there's some companies have their own special software, but like 60-70% of companies just use two programs called Wise with two W's for some reason, or Fmod is the other one. And so like, yes, 60-70% of the entire video games industry use those two programs, and they have a huge amount of tutorials for beginners and things on YouTube. So if someone was looking to write music for video games, I would recommend, you don't have to become an expert. Just spend a day watching some videos, getting a basic understanding, because if you can understand just the very core basics of how that music is put into the game, then you can have better discussions with the audio team about how to break up your music and how it should layer and elements transition and that kind of thing. So it's definitely.
So this software basically does the dynamic changes also, right, on the spot when something happens in the game. This engine is basically somehow makes it linear for the person playing the game.
That's right. Yeah, it's basically what it's like. It's like a pinball table, and what you hear is the pinball flying around the table and to all these different areas, and so the system gets fed information from the game, like what time of day it is, or if you're in danger, or if you don't have much health left, if you're wounded or something. And these bits of information that the audio team decide, they'll drive which piece of music is playing, or which layers of that music, or if it's got some filters or some delays or reverbs, things like that. And all of that happens as you play the game, and it's always, well, in a good system, it's so smooth that you don't consciously really think about the music changing. It's moving around all the time, following your actions, which is it's great fun to build those systems. I mean, I'm not really I'm not a technically minded guy in particular, but I've worked with these dynamic music systems for many years now, and it's a real pleasure thinking of new things I can do. I can feed into the system to change the music. It's really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, but as a music director, you have to have all these like pieces that floating around in the system. You have to have them all in like some kind of on your plate somehow. Yeah, right? You have to deliver it all. No, amazing.
Yeah, it's it's a tricky balance because you want to have as much music and as much changing as possible, but it's quite a lot to ask, especially from an external composer, because if you just have a few different parameters and things changing the music, it sort of balloons and gets bigger very quickly, and suddenly instead of 4 stems of 1 minute, you're asking for 40 stems of 1 minute long, or 400. So you have to you have to pick what's the best, most rewarding changes you can make for the player.
Wow, that sounds very complicated if you come from a linear, because linear is somehow, for me, it's very logic, but I think for you the this process is probably also very logical. But wow.
Yeah, it's nice. You get after doing it for a few games, you can start to see very quickly like how to think in 3D, I guess, for the music, really, for like which directions you want it to go and stuff. It's a pleasure.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I mean, from what you're talking about, is like it seems like you have to do a lot of things when you're working on a game or in your business in general. And I was wondering, you heard probably of the 80-20 rule, like the Pareto principle. And I was wondering, so the 20% get you the 80% of the results, right? So this is the gist of it. Do what you're good at and delegate the rest. Can you tell me something that you're absolutely not good at?
I think there's probably plenty of things. I think I could be a little unfocused, I think, and a little disorganized, which it's because I haven't come from a very disciplined musical background. I'm self-taught as a musician, and I came to music just from the underground bands and things like that. And so like years ago when I was just making songs for my band, my projects in Cubase were just an absolute disaster, nothing's named. It's a mess. I would throw things in and forget about them. And so I've had to get better with that because, I'm now making music in a much more professional way. But I still have a terrible habit of getting excited when a song's going well and I'm throwing in lots and lots of tracks. And then the next day, I'll be asked if I could stem it out and name it all. And I just have, they've got 60 tracks with no names for anything, and I've forgotten what they all are. So I think, some people in the audio side of the games industry can focus a little too heavily on organization and keeping things clean from the start, because I think it's just a personal taste. I like to be, throw paint onto the canvas and see how it looks with my sound. I don't like to over organize at the start. I like to just do things on the fly, but yeah, you do need to be a little more organized than you can't be as messy as you are with just music for fun. And
right.
It grows so quickly and gets so big that if you didn't organize at first, it gets worse and worse. And so,
right. And also I see this especially when mixing. If you like 150 tracks and they're just a complete mess because you didn't, I don't know, put them in folders or whatever and don't name them and color code them or whatever. And then you have to mix them. You have to listen to every track. And if it's meaty and longer things like strings, it's like you have to from the beginning. And it's like it takes a lot of time to do this afterwards. But I also want you to totally get that I just want to start this thing. And I don't want to get all my creative juices going into building a template from scratch every time or whatever. So what's your thought on this? Do you work from a template, or do you have a specific process on when you go to a new track or a new project?
I don't actually, but it's really because a lot of the music I've been doing for the last few years tends to be more electronic than orchestral. And with each of the projects, with my 3 main projects have been Texas Chain Saw, Deathloop, and Cyberpunk. And with all of those, it's kind of been open Cubase and start thinking about what I want to do. There's been a lot of these songs I've been working on. There's been no plan until I start. So there's been no real, especially with Texas Chain Saw, it's very experimental music. And there's not any common starting place for every track. So I completely understand why templates are good, but just it happens to be for the last few years, it hasn't made sense for my music. I quite like starting with nothing and okay, here we go. Whoop, one instrument.
Exactly. I completely understand if you have a template and like a certain set of sounds in there every time you start it up, especially if you do TV series or something like that. If you want to keep the sound like consistent throughout the show, but also when coming from commercials, it doesn't make sense to have a 150 track template with everything in it and having it needs to start up like for half an hour. If you then need a small percussion ensemble, it doesn't make any sense. So I totally get that.
Yeah.
But on the other hand,
I see both sides of it. I think, like you say, that was a really good example. Like for somebody working with a specific tone, it clearly makes sense to have a template. But I mean, really, the only thing I do as a starting point is I have a few master bus plugins that I know I always like to have, and I set up a gain stage just so that because a lot of the things I've been doing for the last few years are pretty noisy music.
You can always make it louder, right? In the end, that's not a big deal.
Exactly, yeah. So I just like to have a gain stage so I can quickly take control of the volume. But,
it's nothing worse if you have to like automations in there and you have to put it all down after like working on it for a couple of days. Yeah, I know that's true. Yeah, I understand. So, so you had a lot of success with your projects, and I'm wondering, I mean, what's your process to find new work, or does it just come to you, or do you reach out like actively?
It's very, very hard to find new work generally. I've always spent a lot of time just cold calling games companies, and I mean, now I'm in a better position now because I've been writing some music for some games, so those companies, I'm kind of on their list. They know that I'm reliable and that I deliver the music I say I will, which is very important, obviously. And also, I've been in the games industry for over 20 years now, so I'm friends with a lot of other audio directors and stuff. But having said that, it's a very difficult market to find work in. I feel very lucky for the work I have found, and a lot of that was just from contacting. If I see any discussions online about people saying they're setting up like for a new game, or if I see some early previews of a game that I think looks cool, then I'll just try and find a contact on LinkedIn or wherever, and just send a message. So, I mean, maybe I'd say 49 times out of 50, nothing comes from that. But that's just part of what you have to do. I think anytime I see something a new game or something exciting, I'll always just jump on and try and contact them. I don't think it's a problem. Like if people contact me as an audio director quite a lot to say about their composers, and I don't mind. I don't need anyone right now, but I remember the details and I can search back and find them. As long as you're not, making a problem of yourself and contacting someone again and again or something crazy, then just sending a message, I don't think is a problem. Audio teams for games companies are all very small. Like even on huge games, the most you ever get is 15, 20 internal people. So yeah, it's not some crazy corporate army that you can't talk to. It's just guys like you and me sitting in a room making some music. So.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But it's competitive industry though. It's hard.
It's not as, I mean, it grew quite a bit in the last 10 years or 5 years even. Yeah. But it's still like, it's a very close circle, and it's just a couple of companies actually that do the bigger games. Of course, there's a lot of indie stuff as far as I know, coming up. But so basically what you do is like you are aware and in these, I don't know, forums or Discord servers or whatever, and then you just take action on when you think something is right for you, or basically
pretty much
everything.
all I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just jump at anything that I think could be an opportunity, and like I say, most times nothing comes from it. But a few of the things of the work I've had are from opportunities like that, and then other work has grown from that. I got the work on Deathloop because I helped out on another project, a smaller project for that company that was a side project from another company I was working on. So it's just
this is how it goes.
Yeah, so I think you just if you like I say, if you work well, if you communicate well and you deliver the music you promise to deliver and don't become a problem, then making games, there's always you need people to be reliable, and sometimes there's fast turnaround and you don't have time to deal with a composer that's being a pain or doesn't deliver on what they say. So proving yourself to be reliable and good communication was very good for your future with the games company, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is true for every composer that's listening to this and watching this. Yeah, communication, I think, is probably the one thing. You can really stand out if you communicate well, I think.
And because I've also, I've had times when I've been working on the audio team with an external composer, and there's been both good and bad, but I would always much rather somebody contacts me and says, hey, I'm not feeling well, or my kid was poorly or something, so I'm sorry I said I was going to do that piece of music today, but it's going to be a few more days. But that's fine. But just sometimes other composers, they just disappear and you have to send 5 emails to see where they're gone, and that's the bad stuff.
Yeah, that's bad. Yeah. It leaves this bitter taste in your mouth, right? You don't know next time when something really is, yeah, I totally agree. So, and when you let's say one of these companies jumps on it and says, okay, cool, thank you for contacting me, we actually need someone. What's your process of deciding if the project is actually then worth your time and your energy and your resources?
It's tricky because nothing is very safe with the video games industry. Games change, and even what sounds like a great idea for a game or a really cool team can go horribly wrong. I've been very lucky. Like the games I've worked on, mostly have done okay, and the ones like Deathloop that I managed to get my work on, that became a huge hit, which was great. I think if I was talking to a games company about a possible work, if I like the sound of the game, I pretty much go for it, because even if I have no idea if it's going to be a success or not, because in the end, the more important than money or anything else for me is just doing work which I'm creatively happy with. I write pretty fast, and I'm always writing music. So even like if some game came along, it's not my normal kind of thing. Like, it's if I was making Barbie simulator or something, I think it's all music. There's always something to be found in the music that you can enjoy. And I don't think I'm a cynical guy. I think I can always find something I love in any music. So if I had to make some Barbie simulator, I would find some interesting aspect in that I could dig in and learn about and enjoy. And then anything you do, I think you can fold that back into your skills and grow from it. So, but
100%, yeah.
I tend to actively look for music in the areas that I like horror and sci-fi and things like that. So I tend to try and find that work. But if some other work, like I say, that's just not my normal thing, arrives at my door, then I'll probably still do it. And if I have to learn jazz or salsa or something, then that's fun as well.
Yeah. This is something really wise that you said there. You can actually find something in any music
Yeah,
that
it's all music.
it's all music in the end.
Yeah.
And I think you could make a big everyone who is like, I only want to do this kind of music. Of course, this can be a goal,
Yeah.
right? But to get there, if you do music, it's better than do no music. So,
Oh yeah.
and
And yeah,
I don't even think that it's just, yeah, it's not just good or bad. It's like, I think it's so much more on the good side to have to make music than to make no music, that I think if you turn a job down just because it's Barbie, it's probably a really bad decision.
Yeah, I'd say that is very, very important. Like, especially, I'm sure with writing professional music for anything, but the games industry, like I say, it's incredibly hard to find work. And you should, if you find any work, you should be very happy. And as time goes on, you can, like you say, you can start trying to just do the sort of thing that you enjoy the most. But I mean, I'm not there yet myself. I would love if I could just write pretty much just horror and sci-fi music, but I'm not in that position yet. So very few composers are, I think, in the games industry. Like maybe 10 guys can choose the work they do. And I'm not one of them.
And what would you make, like, at what point would you say you could choose? I mean, what would need to happen?
I think
so
it would be
choose?
It's just science, really. I think it would just be, or just maths. It's just, if I'm being offered more work than I have time to do, then I can pick which work I do. But I mean, right now I'm not really looking very actively for other stuff because I'm finishing the Texas Chain Saw game. But yeah, when I'm taking more work on, hopefully with some of my successes and things, there'll be a time when 5 people want me to work for them and I can only work for 3, and then in that case I'll pick the ones I like. But I'm not quite there yet.
Yes, amazing. Yeah, so I mean, this is very interesting because we project our success into the future, right? So when we have enough work, or when we hit this kind of like revenue goal in 6 months, then we see ourselves as successful. We are successful music creators because there's something, when we hit this goal, then this means I'm successful. But then, so what happens to me is like, okay, I'm almost there. And then I set myself up for another higher, loftier goal and want to reach even more. So the question is, so the further we go towards this goal, the farther it goes away, basically, because we find new goals to hit to.
Yeah, it's very true.
So rather than looking forward, I would like you to look back and see what are the highs and the lows and the wins and the losses in your journey, and how you feel about it. And this, I mean, it's a crazy journey every one of us has.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. Like, no matter where you get to, you start looking somewhere else, some higher level you think you need to get to. Last year I could easily define as the best year of my career in terms of the results, because during lockdown I was working extra hard and I guess had more time. And so in that 1 year last year, I had I got a BAFTA nomination, and I worked at Abbey Road. Like, I heard my music performed at Abbey Road, and
awesome,
I had an orchestra perform my music, and like, all these things were dreams that I never even didn't think for a second would happen. And it all happened really in about 3 months. I found myself embarrassed to post about it on social media because it was too much. It's like the first one was great. It's like, I can't keep doing this. I just sound like an asshole now. Sorry about the language.
No, that's good.
So yeah, I think it was great. It was good. It didn't stop me. Yeah, it hasn't stopped me feeling like I've just been lucky and I got a good break. I was talking with friends on social media just this week about imposter syndrome and about how
Mm,
so many us musicians we struggle with that. I still feel like everything I've done in my career, I just got lucky, and someone will realize I'm just a fake and I shouldn't be here. I don't think
yeah.
that'll ever go, but that's maybe not a bad thing to because you. I think a musician should be a little humble and should always want to learn. So, like, I don't think there's ever going to be some time when I think, "Hey, I'm great," because that'd just be a, a weird
Right.
thing to say as a musician.
It's so funny because that's actually what we are like brought up to. It's like it's there can always be done more. You can always be more creative. You can always be
Yeah,
have better projects or whatever. And
yeah,
then in the end, when you look back, you're like, okay, I'm actually, and I mean, I think that you are probably in the upper 5% of composers in regards to projects that you work on, and that you can actually make a living, not just a living but a good living from music. And this is not
yeah,
something most of emerging composers or aspiring
yeah.
musicians can say from themselves. So this is really a great achievement.
Oh,
um,
thank you. So,
and the imposter syndrome, yeah, I mean, this is something. I think there's a distinction between imposter and the humility that you need to actually succeed.
I think you're right. There's a slight difference, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think humility is helpful, and a constant desire to learn and improve. That's the. I guess it's like two sides of the same thing. The side
Hmm.
where you're telling yourself you're actually a bad musician and you just got lucky. There's nothing good
Hmm.
there. That's unfortunate. I think we all have bad days. It's bad days and good days, but the
So
same
yeah.
thing on a good day is just you wake up thinking, all right, I've got kind of lucky here and there, but I'm doing okay. But I do need to learn more about woodwind or jazz or whatever. And you
Yeah.
use it for a good reason.
Yeah.
But so I think like the opposite really of last year, where it was so successful in such a short period of time. There's been many years where just it felt like nothing was happening for my music,
Mm.
and I think that's the worst feeling. It's that I would I was releasing albums, nobody really cared. I was trying
Mm.
to get like work on composing for games or other things for adverts and stuff, and nobody was biting. And just
Mm.
the feeling of you're just putting all your music into a black hole is those are the years that suck really.
And see, on the other hand, on Facebook, the other people like making
Yeah.
all these like getting awards or whatever. This
Yeah,
doesn't help really, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's tricky if things aren't really moving for you, and then you're seeing other people winning all the awards and stuff. It's hard not to compare to your own music. But
100%.
yeah, but yeah, I think you just need to remember that it all adds up. Every second of music you write and every video you watch learning something or a new instrument that you work at, that it's just like the things that have gone really well for me in the last 2 or 3 years. There's been a lot of work over these years, but I think maybe the 15 years before that, where there wasn't much success, I was just
Hmm.
a musician working. It all added up because I took all of
Right.
that and put it into this music. So,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
wouldn't be this musician without all those years of playing gigs to 5 people in a pub somewhere
Right.
and writing an album no one cares about.
Exactly. And I think the thing is, no composer that I know of, and I think there is not none, actually
Yeah,
wakes up or gets like turns 18 and now all of a sudden is a great composer. It's
yeah,
just a matter of like putting the time in. And I don't know, I think it's even more than 10,000 hours that you need to actually to get good at what you, because there's so many different skills that you have to learn. From the one side is the
yeah,
creative side, of course. You have to have some kind of like, I don't even think you have to have talent, because you can actually learn it all,
yeah,
I believe. But then you have to have the business skills, communication skills. Like you have to be um, a good collaborator if you want to do client work and stuff like that. So
exactly.
it's
Yeah.
just matter of years of just putting your time in. And
Yeah, I
um,
completely agree. I,
Yeah,
I never really known what I thought about the word talent. I think there are some people with just an amazing natural ability, but I,
yeah,
I don't even think that's really what I have. I think I'm just pretty tough in that I never gave up, and I just kept trying and kept learning and tried to be professional and and have a good attitude towards it. I think
right,
that can get you there if you stick with it.
right, exactly. Sticking with it. I think this is a
Yeah.
common theme that you just have to not give up, whatever
Yes.
this looks like for you. This, and I think not giving up in itself is success,
Yeah.
because it doesn't have. I mean, what is success? This is a big question, but
Yeah.
if you can live from what you love to do, you don't need much more than that. All the awards and all the
Yeah.
critical acclaims everywhere, you can take this with you anyway. So
No,
it's
exactly.
make the best of it now in this time, right?
Yeah, I completely agree.
So yeah. So I mean, this is. I don't know if people would agree, but I think talent isn't the biggest contributor to success, I think. But what are other misconceptions in the game music industry that you would like to set straight?
I think something that's important for people to know that want to write music for games is that it's quite rare for that to be a job in the actual game studio. There's, I'd say, maybe 10% or less of music for games is composed by people in the studio. It's usually an external composer.
Mm-hmm.
Because I get, obviously I do the sound design part of games as well, and
Mm-hmm.
sound design is done internally most of the
Mm-hmm.
time, like 90% of the time. I when I'm hiring for a new member to join the team, I'll get the CVs of people, and maybe 5 out of 10 of them are composers, and they just want to write music for games. And
Yeah.
I think it's an important distinction for people to learn that what a sound designer is and what a composer is for video games.
Mm-hmm.
There's often crossover, and if you're a sound, many like maybe 80% of sound designers also write music because it's a similar area, and you may get some chances to do it, but if you join a company as like a junior sound designer, it's very unlikely you'll be composing music.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if someone's looking to be a video game composer, I think it's important to maybe try primarily to do that as a freelancer
Mm-hmm.
instead of. But if you want to get into a games company, there's you can as a junior sound designer, or a lot of people start in like the junior roles in the QA team. It's called, which is the games testers.
Mm-hmm.
For like younger people joining the games industry, that's a common way of getting into it. Which is it's a very hard job. People think it's sitting around playing games, but it's
That's
pretty
what I
much the
would
hard.
say it is, but it
Yeah,
is not
no,
probably.
it's I think it's the hardest job in the games industry. It's
Mm-hmm.
really really hard. But yeah, so there are many ways you can get into it. But yeah, I'll just say to people, if you want to write music for video games, just work on your skills and contact companies independently instead of trying to get a internal composer role. Like I see maybe one a year come up around the world for
Mm-hmm.
internal composers.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean you shouldn't go for them. If you see one advertised, obviously go for it.
go
But
for it. Mm-hmm.
yeah, don't consider that the first place you look for work. I think
Mm-hmm.
just consider yourself a freelancer.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great
Mm.
great advice, I think. And then, um, so one question I ask everyone, because I'm really
Mm.
interested in where they stand. Um, what legacy would you leave behind when your career ended today, and would it be the one that you would love to have as a legacy?
Oh, that's a very tricky question. I uh, I still don't, because I mean I've the last few games I've done, I'm finally very very proud of the soundtracks or my contribution to the soundtracks, and I guess as of now, I could finally, well, maybe when the Texas Chainsaw game comes out later this year, like just the
Has to
last,
wait a little longer.
yeah. So the last 3 games I've done, I think I'm very proud of that work. And if I had a playlist of the combination of music from those last few games, then I could just about happily call that a representation of my work. But
Awesome.
I still want to do one more album. That's the next album is always the best album.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, okay, I get it. Yeah, I mean, for me, it would be hard to say this is it, because there's so much more work that I would love to do. So yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah. So what would be your answer to that question?
So what I'm happy about is that I leave a legacy in terms of like a recurring income. So there was like so this is something I built over the last 7 years through production music, which is great. But I saw this always as a foundation for going for the bigger stuff. I don't have to worry about money, so I can go for bigger stuff because I don't have to beg for jobs.
Yeah.
I can. So this is why I'm like on the. It would be very sad if it had need to end today, because I built to this point so I can actually go where I want to go. But yeah, so this would be my answer. I would be happy. It would be okay. But if I could choose, it should be the end now. It's just the beginning, right? It's the same for you. It's just the beginning, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Like I'll never be. It sounds like a bad thing. I don't mean not that I'll never be happy. I'll never feel finished. Like I'm going to write music until I fall over and die one day, but nothing's going to stop me. And for the rest of my life, I never retire or anything. But last year I stood in the control room of Abbey Road and listened to people performing my music, and I think that felt like a moment that I could say to myself, like, okay, look, if that was the high point, then that's great. I never thought I'd get that far. So, so it's like a checkpoint, like a save point in my life. So anything else now, and I hope there's much more, but that was enough for me, I think. So.
Yes, I mean this would be a great place to die, probably. In the control room of Abbey Road for composers. Legendary. Anyway,
yeah.
No, there will be many more of these points in your life. I'm pretty sure.
I hope so.
Came this far. So Ross, thank you so much. I would love to hear from you where people can find out more about you.
Sure. I have my website, which is just rosstregenza.com. I'm on all social media. I use Twitter most for talking about music stuff. So if you just find just Ross Tregenza on Twitter and find me. And if anybody has any questions about any part of writing for video games or anything else, then I'm always available to chat. I also do a lot of stuff on YouTube. I do like a weekly rambling video at the end of each week talking about the games industry and horror and stuff. So I'm all over everything. Awesome.
Great. Beware your inbox. People will reach out to you.
That's no problem.
Cool, Ross. Thank you so much for coming on. It was a really interesting conversation with you, and I learned a lot because I'm not a game composer.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me. Man.
Of course. Have a great rest of your. It's more light in the nighttime for you. But have a great rest of your day.
You too, man. It's a pleasure talking to you.
You too, man. Goodbye.